Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Last video we went ahead and we made an animation of a guy dancing in the terminal doing those windmill arms. And this video we're going to go ahead and learn how to make a loading bar. So the first thing I'm going to do is let me just show you what that loading bar is going to look like. So right down here, that's going to be our finished product. We can just play that again. Loading. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy and paste this into my code. So that way I can know what it looks like, and then I'm going to comment it out. Okay, so that's our end goal. We're going to need time for this one, so I'm going to import that library time. And now we need to think about what do we know how to do? Well, in the last video we talked about how we can print. So we could print loading. That's our first step, is we're going to print loading onto our terminal. I'm going to go ahead and clear that out. So we've got loading. Great. But it looks like we're going to need to print a little bit more than that. So we could just do print loading and then print and then copy this into there. And then let's see, does that work? Does that look like, yeah, pretty much looks like it's supposed to look like. But it's not quite all the way there. So we know how to print, and we're going to have to loop through as we print. So what we're going to do is, first things first, I want to set a width. So my width equals 30. That's just what I've set. And then I'm going to say for I in range 0 to width. And I'm going to do width plus 1. Because if you remember, the range function sends you from 0 all the way not quite to the end. So it goes from 0 to 30, and it does not include 31. It excludes the last value. And then we're going to make a function, we're going to make a variable. We're going to call it the bar, the loading bar. And we know that this needs to kind of look like this. So we're going to start there. And then we're going to print that clear command or escape sequence. So O33C and equals nothing. And then we're going to print our word. What do we want our word to be? In this case, we're just going to make our word loading. And then we're going to print our bar. And then we need to leave some time. And we're just going to make it pretty short. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. So it looks kind of good, right? It has the loading word. It has a bar. It's pretty short, but it doesn't grow. We want our loading bar to grow. And we also want to add, I think it looks nice to have this ellipses at the end. So how can we do that? First, in this print statement, we're going to do a plus ... So what is this doing? In Python, you can do something called string concatenation. And that's just a fancy word to mean we're going to push our strings together. So we're going to take one string, the word, and we're going to take our other string, the ellipse, and we're going to push them together. And if we go ahead and run this, we get loading ... And we can actually use that string concatenation to our advantage to make this bar. So what we're going to do is we're going to do plus the hash, and then we want the hash to grow. And in this loop, we already have that built in. We have a number that's growing from 0 to 30. So we can actually, instead of just doing string addition, we can do string multiplication. So we're going to do that hash times I. And let's see what we get. Perfect. So we have our open bracket, we have those hashes, and they grow, they load. And the last thing that we're going to need is we're going to need a closing bracket. And let's see how this works, or see how this goes, I should say. So it's not quite what we want, because we want this closing bracket to sit at the end. I think it looks the best when the closing bracket stays here, and then the hashes fill up the empty space. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to add one more piece to our little string variable bar. And we're going to add just a single space. And how many spaces do we want? Well, we want the opposite of how many hashes there are out of 30. So we're going to multiply this by the width and then we're going to do minus I. And what this is saying is when we have one hash, we're going to have width 30 minus 1, 29 spaces. When we have two hashes, we're going to have 28 spaces. Three hashes, 27 spaces, and so on. And then our bracket is going to stay the exact same. And let's see how this goes. Perfect. We have a loading bar, and it loads, the brackets stay in the right places, and then it just fills up the white space with the hash marks. So how can we use this? We have this cool little program, but like, that's it. It just runs the program. What we're going to do is we're actually going to turn this into a function. We're going to call it print bar. And like I said in Python, Python is kind of finicky about your tabs. You need to indent everything. So in our for loop, right, we have for, and then we have all these indents. And this is telling us that all of these things happen inside our for loop. And so if we have a function, we need to indent everything inside the function. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight it all and then just press tab, and it all moves over. And functions are cool. You can just run a function. It can do whatever you want. Or you can have a function input. So I'm going to input word into my function. And now let's go ahead and run this. And you'll notice nothing happened. And that's because we need to call our function. Even though we made it, we need to tell the computer, hey computer, I want to use my function print bar. So let's go ahead and use our function print bar. And our word is going to be loading. Perfect. And now we have a function print bar that we can call whenever we want. And the last thing I want to do is I want to add a single last escape sequence to clear my screen. And so when would we use this? Well, one way we could use this is I'm going to teach you one other cool function, and it's called input. So we're going to use a Python input, and inside the input we say a phrase. So I'm going to say, please enter your password. And then we're going to set this equal to our variable password. And then we're going to say print bar authenticating Okay, so now what do we have? We have password equals input, and this is where the user is going to put something in. And then we're going to do our print bar, and then we're going to print a final, your password has been accepted. Let's see how this goes. So the first thing is it's going to ask me to input my password, and I'm just going to say Matthew. And then we get our print bar, and then your password, Matthew, was accepted. And one last thing is I want to add 2 ticks. I just think it's going to look a little bit better. Let's see how this goes. Perfect. Okay, and what is this printf? What is this saying? This is a formatted print statement. And so what this is doing is it's telling us that we want to print this formatted string. And so it's going to print all of this and all of this exactly like we told it to. But then it's also going to print the thing inside the bracket exactly as it exists. So here we're saying password equals input password, and I typed in Matthew. And so password equals the string Matthew. And so this is going to print out your password, Matthew, was accepted. And that's exactly what we see down here. And so we can use this formatted string to change the things that we're printing without actually hard coding that change into our computer. So that's why it's really nice and really useful. Okay, you guys can go ahead and turn off the video. You don't need to keep watching, but I want to add one more thing that I think looks really good to this print bar. And that thing is I like our print bar to slow down. I want it to have a little bit of a variable speed. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to set a variable sec for second to be 0.02. And the reason I know it's 0.02 is because I've played with this a lot, and that's the time that I think looks the best. And then what I'm going to do is I want this to sleep for the time sec. So it's going to be 0.02. And then I'm going to actually increase that time. So what is this doing? I'm saying I have this time, I want my print bar to wait every single loop that amount of time, and then every single loop, I'm going to increase that amount of time. And why did I do it this way? I just played around with a bunch of numbers, and I just felt like that 1.08 was the right increase speed, and I thought that 0.02 was the right start speed. So let's see how this goes. And you can see it slows down there at the end, and I think that kind of looks like a real loading bar. Again, this loading bar means nothing. It doesn't actually tell us how close our product is to being done, or that function is to being done, the authentication. But I still think it looks like a pretty cool and useful animation to have in your programs. And in our next video, I'm going to show you how to actually check if a password is a real password in your system. And hopefully that's going to be a lot of fun for us.